9 jewels of the French crown, 88 million euros. Gone in under 8 minutes from the most visited museum on Earth. On the wall of the Louvre that faces the Seine, a camera records 4 men in high-visibility vests. It sees all of it. But the picture reaches the control room screens 4 minutes late, at 9:38, when the men are already climbing down. The police arrive about 30 seconds after they ride away. For 4 minutes, the Louvre watched its own crown jewels leave the building, on a screen no one was looking at. Every masterpiece has a past. So does every theft. Grumeau. This is not, in the end, a story about clever criminals. It is a story about a building that had been warned. A private audit 7 years before had described the exact balcony they broke in through. The password to its surveillance system was a single word, the name of the museum itself. This is how the crown jewels of France left in broad daylight, and why, 9 months on, 8 of them have never been found. Sunday, the 19th of October, 2025. 9:30, 30 minutes after the doors opened. 4 men in the yellow vests of removal workers arrive on the Quai François Mitterrand, the Louvre's river frontage. With them, 2 Yamaha scooters and a lorry fitted with a furniture lift, the kind used to hoist a wardrobe to a 3rd-floor flat. The lift was German-made, and it had been stolen days earlier from its owner during a sale demonstration that turned out to be a setup. Nobody stops them. Paris is full of building work. So is the Louvre. This is the most visited museum on Earth. 9 million people passed through it the year before. At 9:34, the platform rises to the 1st-floor balcony of the Galerie d'Apollon, the gilded hall of Louis XIV, home to the crown diamonds. 2 masked men cut the window with a battery-powered angle grinder. The display alarm sounds. Guards begin evacuating visitors, exactly as the protocol says. And the thieves turn their own tools on the guards to keep them back. They're inside for 3 minutes and 58 seconds. They smash 2 cabinets and lift 9 pieces. The sapphire set of 2 19th-century queens, the emerald necklace and earrings Napoleon once gave the Empress Marie-Louise, 3 jewels of the Empress Eugénie, and Eugénie's crown itself. Gold, 1,354 diamonds, 56 emeralds. At 9:38, they go back down the lift. They try to set the lorry alight, they had brought petrol, and fail. Then they ride off along the river on the 2 scooters. Start to finish, under 8 minutes. American networks would call it 7. The French prosecutor said under 8. The reconstruction puts them in the gallery from 9:34 to 9:38. However you count it, it is the length of a song. And then they made a mistake. In the rush of the escape, they dropped Eugénie's crown. All 1,354 diamonds of it. And it was found, dented, on the pavement near the museum. Around it, a glove, a helmet, a vest, the tools. Investigators would lift more than 150 traces from what the thieves left behind. The single error of the operation became its single richest piece of evidence. But the strangest detail is not what they took, it is what they left. In the same room sat the Régent, 140.6 carats, one of the most famous diamonds in the world, valued in the press at anywhere between 51 million euros and more than $60 million. They did not touch it. Asked why, the Paris prosecutor, Laure Becot, gave the only honest answer available to her. I don't have an explanation for that. Neither, 9 months later, does anyone else. Provenance follows the money behind stolen art. the heists, the forgeries, the auction rooms where a masterpiece changes hands in the dark. If that is the kind of history you keep, subscribe and stay with this one, because the trail is about to leave the museum entirely. 3 days after the theft, Laurence Descartes, the first woman to run the Louvre, sat before the French Senate and admitted that the outside camera coverage had been, in her words, very insufficient. The one exterior camera on that stretch had been pointing the wrong way. It never saw the balcony at all. She offered her resignation. The culture minister, Rachida Dati, refused it. Then the auditors arrived, and the picture got worse. In early November, France's public spending watchdog reported that the museum had favored visible, attractive projects over the dull work of maintenance and security. Of an €80 million plan to modernize the Louvre's protection, just $3 million had actually been spent. 3/4 of one entire wing had no camera coverage at all, and the details that followed read like satire. The password to the surveillance system, according to the newspaper Libération, was one word: Louvre. A state cybersecurity audit had flagged weak passwords as far back as 2014. A separate audit in 2018, paid for by the jeweler Van Cleef and Arpels, had described precisely the vulnerability of the balcony the thieves would use. Nobody had acted on any of it. And here is the part that still surprises people. There was no insurance payout, because there could not be. Under French law, the state insures its own national museums. The loss simply fell where it landed. In February of 2026, worn down by the theft and the scandals around it, Descartes resigned. This time, it was accepted. The hunt, though, was already moving faster than the museum's excuses. The Louvre had shut that Sunday and reopened 3 days later, the Galerie d'Apollon sealed behind a screen. The jewels that remained were moved, under police escort, to a vault 26 meters beneath the Bank of France. More than 100 investigators were put on the case. Within a week, DNA taken from the scene led to the first 2 arrests. One suspect was stopped at Charles de Gaulle Airport, about to board a one-way flight to Algeria. The other was arrested at home, in the Paris suburb of Aubervilliers, a motorbike stunt performer known to his online followers by a nickname, not his name. Both partly confessed. Both were charged with organized gang robbery. More followed. A man with 11 previous convictions. A woman, the partner of one of the suspects, charged with complicity, who wept in front of the judge and denied everything. By late November, a 4th member of the team had been charged. 11 people detained. 5 formally under investigation. All still presumed innocent. And not one jewel recovered. Because the jewels had vanished almost at once. In an image released only months afterwards, a private camera in an underground car park in Aubervilliers had filmed one of the suspects, an hour after the theft, still in his helmet, lifting the jewels out of a black bag to show 2 other men. That is the last time anyone is known to have seen them. The prosecutor called the operation extremely well prepared. Days later, she called the men behind it ordinary criminals, not the upper tier of organized crime. Both things, apparently, were true. So who wanted them? By early 2026, investigators believed the jewels might never have left France at all. Then, a second country entered the story. On the phones of Eastern European criminals arrested in Belgium, for something else entirely, police found photographs of the Galerie d'Apollon. The trail crossed the border. And in fresh questioning that summer, 2 of the men finally described how it had worked. They had been recruited only days before the theft, they said, by a man they would not name, for fear of what he might do, and paid between 15 and 20,000 euros each. One of them insisted he had believed the target was a jewelry shop, not the Louvre. This part comes from a single source, a French newspaper, so hold it lightly. But it is the line that has followed the case ever since. The man who ordered the robbery of the century, they said, was not satisfied. He thought they could have taken more. He has never been named. For 4 minutes, no one was watching the screen. 9 months later, no one can find the jewels. 8 pieces of a nation's history, feared already broken down into anonymous stones, taken from the one museum too grand to guard itself. The most visited building on earth was robbed of its crown, in daylight, by men who thought the hall was small. Next on Provenance, a forger who understood the real lesson of this story, that the most valuable thing a thief can steal is not a jewel, but a past. Every masterpiece has a past.